Welcome back to Sahara TV. My name is Rudolf Okonkwo. As we review the year 2013, we want to look at the political situation in Nigeria, especially the current environment. And we are honored to have Mr. Femi Fani-Kayode, the former Minister of Aviation, joining us now. Mr. Femi Fani-Kayode, welcome to Sahara TV.
Thanks very much for having me. Good morning.
So, yeah, let me start by saying, where are you in Nigeria? Are you celebrating the holidays well?
Very, very much so. Okay. I'm very relaxed, having just come back from Makurdi and Yola yesterday. So I'm very relaxed. I'm here in Abuja.
Abuja. So is the government closed, or are things happening in Abuja? How is the environment there today?
Well, I think most people are out of town because most people go to their various homes. But the atmosphere is very, very pleasant, very festive mood. It's coming to the end of the year, so people are hoping to go into the new year in a very prayerful, relaxed manner, and I think it's a wonderful atmosphere. All is well.
But we know that underneath that the political situation in Nigeria is boiling up. Do you agree?
Yes.
So
I agree with you there.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's start from the latest issues we have in the news. Let's start with Obasanjo's letter, because that led to several things. You came out and you called the letter historic, and you said that it meant that Jonathan's presidency is coming to an end. Do you still feel the same way after the president responded?
Well, certainly I do, and if anything, as far as I'm concerned, the contents of the so-called response have only confirmed my views and my initial suggestion that this government and this president really don't know how to respond to issues in a very clear and concise manner. The response has given me even more cause for concern than I had when I first read the publication. And so I really do think that we are heading for stormy waters in this country. I think it's the end of the road for Jonathan. I think he's on a morally indefensible ground. And I really don't see how he's going to get out of this, because people are still asking the questions. Those questions that President Obasanjo raised are fundamental issues that touch and concern every single Nigerian, and I maintain that it was very courageous of him to have raised these issues that 99% of other Nigerian leaders are quick to talk about privately, but are simply not prepared to raise publicly. So I commend Obasanjo for that, and we still await Jonathan's proper reply, proper response, and see whether he'll change his course.
Now, you said in an interview with Channels TV that you've been in contact with Obasanjo. Did he share evidence or for the allegations in his letters with you?
Well, the issue is this. I've worked with President Obasanjo for a number of years now, and I've been close to him since, for the last 11 years, we've been very, very close. What I am prepared to tell you, well, let me just start by saying this. I won't go into the details of the evidence that he has, though I have no doubts in my mind whatsoever that he has compelling evidence to back up all his assertions. We discussed a number of issues. We've done so since then. We did so at the time. Of course, before I would come out to defend a position, I need to be absolutely sure myself. And as far as I'm concerned, he has more than enough evidence to back up his assertion. Now, quite apart from, and he has shared some of that with me. Now, quite apart from that, you need to understand that this is a man I've known for almost 11 years. He's not the type of man that will say something that he doesn't mean, and he does not come out to make grave allegations lightly. He's somebody that is very careful about his choice of words. When I first read that letter, I knew it was him right from the start, apart from the fact that he referred me to it, and, he asked me if I'd seen it on the internet just after the story had been broken by Premium Times. And then, of course, he referred me to the main one, and he sent a copy to me just before it came out in its full form in the media, the nation's media, the following day. And, when I read it, I was amused, because I know exactly how he writes. I know exactly the type of words he uses. And he chose his words very, very carefully. Every sentence, every word was Obasanjo, pure and simple. And believe me, he meant those words. And I believe he wrote it out of a position of deep concern for the country, for his own party, the PDP, and for the future of Nigeria. And I think it was the right and proper thing to do.
Now, some people believe that what happened in the last few weeks were coordinated. That is that both the Speaker of the House of Rep accusation that there's corruption or the body language of the president is condoning corruption, and the letter from the central bank governor and Obasanjo's letter, that these are stories that have been circulating within the political hierarchy, and they coordinated the release of these things, all to undermine the president. Are you aware of something like that going on?
Well, look, the issue is this. Those that are looking for, for deep conspiracies in the shadows and so on and so forth may well be right. They may well be wrong. I really don't know. What I do know, however, is that if the evidence wasn't there, in terms of the submissions that Tambuwal made, and in terms of the submissions that Sanusi at Central Bank made, and in terms of the submissions that President Obasanjo made, really nobody will be able to say anything, and they will be in a much safer situation than they are today. The fact of the matter is that whether or not there was a coordinated response or there's a conspiracy of some sort, people have every right to be deeply concerned, because the issues raised by all three gentlemen were very serious issues which have a basis in truth, and they were very rational and laudable contributions. If you're talking about the development of our country, and if you're talking about wanting to get things right, if, for example, there wasn't massive corruption, Tambuwal won't be able to say anything. If billions of naira hadn't gone missing in Central Bank, whether it's the larger figure or the smaller one, Sanusi, who is governor of Central Bank, would not be able to say anything. If lists of people to be assassinated by the government had not been prepared, and if you didn't have monumental corruption in the system, if Jonathan hadn't broken his word on a number of occasions, and all the other things that Obasanjo listed in his love letter, then of course, he wouldn't have been able to say anything. Obasanjo wouldn't have been able to say anything. They are creating an atmosphere of insecurity and fear in this country. That is the government I'm talking about. And people are bound to speak out. Whether that's coordinated or not is neither here nor there. If they didn't misbehave in this way, people would not be able to speak out and say these things.
So you just said that there is a list out there of people to be assassinated. Have you seen it? Is Obasanjo going to let the country know who is on the list?
Listen to me very carefully. As I said earlier, President Obasanjo will not share that information with the Nigerian public if he didn't have every reason to believe that it was true. Now, he asked the question in his submission. He said, if it is not true, the government should say so. He left them with a way out. Of course, they said it's not true, but the evidence, as far as I'm concerned, is pretty compelling. Obasanjo does not speak lightly. The contents, or precisely what that evidence is, some aspects of it he has shared with me, and I'm fairly confident that the allegation is serious enough for him to bring it to public attention. It's left for the government to prove to us that it is not true. It is also left to them to ensure that the security and safety of every single citizen in this country, including opposition figures that we believe have been listed, is secured. Because if people suddenly start slipping over in the bath whilst they're having a bath and smash their head on the floor and they suddenly die, or for example, if they suddenly start dying in car accidents or plane crashes in a very mysterious, or any other sort of mysterious and sudden form of death or a sudden heart attack, then of course we will point fingers at some people. There are many ways of doing these things, and not the most obvious one of just blowing somebody's brain out with a gun. They also have other ways of doing it, and that's governments all over the world. And I'm saying that they need to be extremely careful. They need to ensure that people don't suddenly start dropping dead. That is, key members of the opposition, if they want to convince us that that's not their plan. So I am convinced that something untoward is going on, and I think it would be most wise for those of us that are sensible to appreciate the fact that Obasanjo does not speak slightly, and we need to be extremely careful, and we need to keep our government on their toes and warn them to desist from charting a course of action which would have monumental implications for them and for this nation.
Now, there was a news report that Obasanjo is being investigated now, that some agencies of government, security people will talk to Obasanjo to get his view and probably for him to provide evidence. Is he going to do that? Or is something like that going on, and is he going to do that, provide the evidence to the government?
Well, I really don't know what the government are doing and whether they're investigating him or asking him to come and provide evidence. It's entirely up to them. They can choose whatever cause they want. But I'm not aware of that. And if they are, good luck to them. Let's see whether the president, that is President Obasanjo, would be ready to discuss such matters with them. I'm sure he probably would. But I really am not aware of that, and I wouldn't want to comment on it. What I will say, however, again, is that nobody is intimidated by any form of investigation. Nobody's intimidated by anything. The fact that this is a four-star general you're talking about, a man that's ruled this country as military head of state, as you know, and a two-time democratically elected president, a man that took the surrender of the Biafran forces during the Civil War, and a man that is very, very conversant with the way the system works in this country and the way the security agencies work. So there's nothing they can say to him that's going to intimidate him or in any way make him nervous. I'm pretty sure about that.
Now, let's go to one of the letters also that came as a result of this, which was a letter from Iyabo, who is Obasanjo's daughter. How was that received by the Obasanjo camp?
Well, you know, really, if you want to speak to President Obasanjo or any member of his family about that, that would be between you and them. I would only speak on that as an associate and somebody that considers himself to be a proud disciple of President Olusegun Obasanjo. And in that capacity, I really don't discuss personal issues about people's private lives and so on and so forth. I'm not even sure who wrote that letter. I haven't heard from Iyabo herself. We haven't spoken. She has not told me that she wrote it. She has not told me that she didn't write it. The Vanguard newspaper is a newspaper that I respect immensely. I respect their publisher, their editors, and their managing editor. I write for them from time to time, and I don't take anything that they write or say lightly at all. So it is in that context that I take the contents of what was purportedly Iyabo's letter very seriously. However, you know, for me, the most important issues are not about the private life of Obasanjo or the nature of his relationship with any of his children and the way in which he treats them as a father. I think these are personal issues which do not in any way concern me. I'm more concerned with issues that touch and concern the nation. And the issues that he raised in his letter to Goodluck Jonathan, I'm far more impressed and I'm far more interested in that than I am about anything that's purportedly written by a daughter that is clearly estranged by her, from her father. That is assuming that she really wrote it.
Beyond personal issues, she also wrote in the letter, if we agree she wrote it, about the need, Obasanjo's need to feel that he must be consulted or he's, you know, very important, something like that. And we saw Jonathan, the president, come out to say that nobody owns this country, which is seen as an attack on that concept that you have to. Is that the personality of Obasanjo? Is he just looking for attention?
Well, look. You know, hang on a minute. Look, this is a man that, like I said earlier, has ruled the country on 3 separate occasions. A man that took the surrender of the Biafran forces after the Civil War. A man that is literally, whether you hate him or you love him, is seen by many as the father of the nation. A man who has seen it all. A man that anytime he comes out with some of these submissions, certain things happen within a period of varying degrees of time after he has spoken out. He spoke out against the Shagari government. And of course, eventually something happened. He spoke out against Buhari's government. Again, something happened. He spoke out against Babangida's government. If you remember the famous structural adjustment program, Stop Lacking the Compassion and the Milk of Human Kindness. Of course, that was the death knell of President Babangida's administration after he came out with that submission. He came out very famously and very relevantly when Yar'Adua was ill at the hospital in Saudi Arabia, and he was dying, and yet he refused to resign, and a certain cabal were running the country in his name and doing all kinds of crazy things. He spoke out at that time when nobody else was prepared to do so, and called on Yar'Adua to resign and said that if he's too sick to run the country, he should just let go of the reins of power. Again, not too long after that, something happened. Now he has taken his time and he has watched the situation unfold in our country, and he has spoken out at the appropriate time that our country is going to the dogs. People may end up being killed. People, there's monumental corruption and so on and so forth. And it was right and proper for him to speak out as an elder statesman and one of the fathers of this nation. Quite apart from that, there's another issue, and that is this. Many of us have been very uncomfortable with Obasanjo for the last, 2 or 3 years. Many of his closest associates and disciples and people that were in his government, simply because, we felt that he should have come out much earlier. He's stuck in PDP, he still remains in PDP till this day. And we felt he should have got out much sooner and broken that party, because we believed PDP was a vehicle that was going to lead this country to disaster. Now, we've been urging him to speak out for a long time. He has refused to do so. And now he's doing so. We're very happy about that. We believe he's doing the right and responsible thing now to save the nation from the mess that he created in the first place by bringing Jonathan and insisting that Jonathan should run the affairs of this country. He started it when he brought Yar'Adua. That was a disaster. He brought Jonathan as the vice president to Yar'Adua. That was a disaster. He insisted on ensuring that Jonathan should become the president of this country. That was a disaster. And the greatest disaster of the three was the last one, and we need to get out of this mess. He, more than anybody else, has a responsibility, if he doesn't want to be judged harshly by history, to ensure that good luck Jonathan does not come back in 2015. Why? Because he was literally the one that told us that we should support him and Yar'Adua, and put them there. He imposed them on the party. He also imposed them on the nation, because we ensured that they won the election in a free and fair election. Now, I feel that with that in mind, he, more than anybody else, has the right and has indeed the duty to ensure that the mess that he has created has been cleaned up. And thankfully, he's doing that now. And by doing that, he has endeared himself to the hearts of millions of people in the north and in the southeast and in the southern part of our country, who are simply not happy with what Nigeria is being turned into under the present administration.
I'm happy you acknowledge that he curated this mess and he's trying to clean it up. But let me ask you, because you made references to the past where he said something and something happened. Is he going to be responsible for whatever might happen if anything happens to the presidency?
He can't be held. The only person that will be responsible for anything that may happen or not happen in this country, as long as he's in power, is the president of the Federal Republic of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and that is President Goodluck Jonathan. The responsibility for what may or may not happen lies firmly with him. He must take full responsibility for the affairs of this country and the consequences of his actions. And what I think Obasanjo is trying to do is to ensure that the worst doesn't happen, and that is that we don't have disaster or calamity or anything unconstitutional happening in the affairs of our country. I think he's trying his very best to save this man from destroying himself and destroying our nation in the process. Now, and it's rather like, yes.
Mr. Fani-Kayode, now people are saying, like the president in their response, the president in his response was saying that, okay, that if he doesn't respond now and people start dying, for instance, people are start getting assassinated, that people will say that Obasanjo said it. It's now what Obasanjo said that is happening.
Yes.
Now my question
doesn't change that.
Yeah, my question. Yeah, but my question now is:
if a murder, if you say a murder, I'm sorry to interrupt you. But let me just say this, just so I don't lose my train of thought.
Yeah.
The fact that he has said no, I'm not going to do it, doesn't mean that he won't. I mean, the fact of the matter is that, as far as we're concerned, actions speak louder than words. The only way you can convince some of us that there is no such agenda is to ensure that the security and the safety of people in opposition and indeed the Nigerian people in general is secured. You don't, a thief will not tell you he's a thief, even when you allege he's a thief. He will simply say, no, I'm not one, until you catch him or until things start going missing in the house. Then you'll say, oh, maybe he really was a thief after all. And even then, he'll tell you he never did it. So we've seen this. We've been through this. They will never say they were doing something. However, the onus is on them to protect people and ensure opposition figures don't start, dropping dead. And now, if they can do that, then we'll be convinced.
Now we can turn the argument in the other way. We can say that if there is a military coup, for instance, and they say that based on what Obasanjo was the person that the letter and the way he attacks the government gave them the impetus, the environment to now take this action. Will Obasanjo feel responsible for the end of the democratic process?
let me tell you something. You don't need a letter to be written and made public for such a thing to happen if the contents of such a letter, of that letter, are true. People don't, in the history of our country, you have never had a situation where a coup has been inspired or has been caused by a letter or by a public admonition. This was simply a public admonition to a president who has refused to listen after private communications have been made to him. And it's also like telling the world, listen, I brought this man. He has derailed. He's not listening to me. I'm telling you, I'm showing you that this is what I'm telling him. These are the problems. He needs to fix them. That is what you call an admonition, not a call to arms, not a call for mutiny, not a call for a coup. Obasanjo, the Democrat, he said it over and over again. He's totally committed, as we all are, to the democratic order. But we want to protect the democratic order by ensuring that the President of the Federal Republic begins to behave in a sensible, democratic manner and does not encourage things that are not right and that are not of God to take place under his watch. That's all. So I don't think you can hold him, Obasanjo, accountable for anything that may or may not happen. And by the way, I don't for 1 minute think such a thing will happen. I military coups are a thing of the past, and neither would any of us support such a course of action. We are Democrats. But within the context of democracy, let us get this thing right. Let us do it in a constitutional, lawful manner. And let us get our president to sit up and to begin to do the right thing. If we're talking about accountable government, there's nothing wrong with coming out publicly to admonish the government and criticizing them and even condemning them. That's the right and proper thing to do in a democracy if you're not happy with what is going on. And that's what Obasanjo has done. And I think he did the right and proper thing. And I sincerely hope that the Jonathan government take him seriously and try to change their course.
Okay. Now, Mr. Fani-Kayode, let's go to... we will come to the opposition, but let me look at this letter also from Sanusi, the central bank governor, where he alleged that over $49 billion was not being sent to the federal account by the NNPC. Now, we know that they met, and after reconciliation of the accounts, they came up with a figure that is less than that. Now, people will say that money is still missing, that money is still not accounted for. But how will someone in his position not be able to come up with the exact figure of what money that is due to the federal government? And how long has this been going on? You were in government. How could that be? People don't understand how that could be going on in a country like Nigeria.
Well, first of all, I think it's for Sanusi himself to explain the discrepancy and the fact that he came out with one figure which alarmed the country, and then the next thing he changed the figure and it was considerably less. However, the point that he has made is very clear. And what he's saying as the governor of the central bank, the sitting governor of the central bank, is that here, look, monies are going missing, and they're being stolen, and they're going missing, under the watch of a government which I am serving. And here I am as governor of central bank, and I'm telling the president, I'm telling the world, monies are going missing. Now, in a sensible country, and if you had a very sensible governor of central bank, I would have thought that given the fact that he has admitted that monies are missing, regardless of the amounts, they still run into billions of naira, that he would have resigned in protest. But he has said monies are missing, and he's insisted on staying on as governor of central bank. I find that very curious. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we need to commend him, regardless of the fact that he's refused to resign, because he has come up with something that most people already knew. And most people also knew the government, the president himself, was not prepared to do anything about it. That is to say that monies were being stolen and monies were missing. And he has enunciated this in a very eloquent manner publicly, and he has told the world that, look, that's what's going on. And I assume that he wants the president to do something about it. Up until now, the government has said nothing. All they've said is that, well, the figures were wrong. It's less than, the figures are less than what he thought, and then it's okay. As if to say there's a difference between stealing $50 billion and to stealing maybe $2 billion. I mean, it's absurd. They've done nothing, they've said nothing. So I think Sanusi has done the right and proper thing by exposing the rot and by telling the world that this is what's going on. And it makes it more telling and more damning, because he is the governor of central bank. He's part and parcel of this administration, and he has exposed them. He has exposed the truth and shown the world what they really are. My only regret about his course of action is that Having said that, I would have thought that he would resign honorably and say, look, I will not have any part of this, whether it's 100 billion US, 50 billion US, or 1 billion US, or even 1 million naira. I would have thought that if he's alleging that monies are missing, then he would have said, listen, they've gone missing, find this money, and I'm resigning. I will have nothing to do with this leprous government under which such things happen. But he has refused to do that.
All right, let's go to the APC, the opposition party. What is the plan to win the next election? Does that plan have to include hanging out or getting people like Babangida, Obasanjo, and all these former governors of PDP to come to APC? Is that the way to winning an election? Or is it through the voters, getting the voters to be part of APC?
Well, first of all, if you really are serious about winning an election and defeating a sitting president in this country, which is an extremely difficult thing in the Nigerian context, you have to ensure that all the major stakeholders, or as many as possible, and all the key players in the political process and the power game in this country are either completely with you, or they are not going to side with your enemy, or they're not going to, they're not going to get involved in fighting you. You have to try to win over as many people as possible. It's a game of numbers. All these individuals that you've mentioned not only have major constituencies of their own within their own parts of the country, they're also major stakeholders, elder statesmen, and they also have enormous resources to throw around to assist in the whole process. So I think it would be very naive if you are running a democracy, if you're fighting for power, that you would ignore people that you consider to be stakeholders and elder statesmen, and you would say you're not going to talk to them. It's not a purist thing. Politics in any part of the world is not purist. You have to reach out to people, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's a game of numbers. You have to bring them on board. And I think for the first time in our history, a progressive opposition, because really that's what APC is. It's filled with very progressive people, people that really do want to bring change in this country, have realized that principle without power is barren, and power without principle is an extremely dangerous thing. So what are they doing? They're holding on to their principles, but at the same time they are consulting people that can ensure that they actually get the power. And to do that, you need to talk to people, especially those that are very powerful in the country, and they're very powerful in the circles of power and a part of the so-called system in Nigeria. You have to win them over and at least ensure that they don't oppose you. And that's what's going on here. You cannot be serious about, winning power in Nigeria without talking to an Obasanjo or a Babangida or all these people. Not that, they only have one vote like everybody else. They're not gods or anything like that. But at the same time, they have immense influence in a number of places in this country, within the circles of power and with the ordinary people. And anybody that doesn't know that simply doesn't understand the way the system works. So the APC is doing the right and proper thing. And the ruling party, the PDP, has already been broken virtually into two camps. You have the good luck group, then you have the other side, some of whom have already left and some of whom will leave soon. And that's the way to do it. The APC must reach out to the elements that are not happy with the government, to the elders that are not happy with the government, anybody else that matters, and bring them on board and ensure they bring all their supporters and people as well. If we can form one strong party, a party that is attractive to the overwhelming majority of Nigerian people, then I think there's a good chance that for the first time in our history, a sitting president can be voted out of power in a free and fair election.
All right, Mr. Fani-Kayode, we are out of time. Let me ask you one last question. Going into 2014, what are you looking up to? What are you afraid of? What do you think will happen in the country, politically and otherwise?
Well, very briefly, let me just say this. If as we're going into 2014, if we can ensure that the rules are stuck to, and the democratic process is honored, and everybody is ready to play by the rules, then I have no doubt that this government will be voted out in 2015. My fear is that as we are about to have elections in Osun State and in Ekiti next year, that the ruling party may try to rig it, or they may try to rig 2015 as well in the presidential election. And that's my greatest fear. If that happens, they announce false results or they rig the election, then I can assure you that Nigeria will never be the same again, because I'm not too sure that this time around the opposition will say they shall wait and go to court or the tribunal. I am pretty certain that this time around people will take matters into their own hands and insist on their right and insist on their mandate. So I'm urging everybody, particularly the government and those in the PDP, to be sensible and to understand that there is no more rigging. We will not tolerate it. We will not accept it. And as long as they do that, and as long as people don't start being killed and so on and so forth, things should be okay. Anything less, Nigeria will be in trouble, and the consequences will be far too great for me to even describe here on Sahara Reporters or anywhere else.
All right, Mr. Fani-Kayode, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a happy New Year, and we will get you back next year.
Thank you. Let me also congratulate you for breaking the story on Stella Odua and the car scandal, just as I congratulate Premium Times for breaking the one on the other major stories, the one on the letters and also the one on Central Bank. I think you guys in social media are doing a great job. Please keep it up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All the best now.
All right. That was Mr. Femi Fani-Kayode talking to us about Nigeria in 2013. When we come back, we are going to get some experts, commentators to come and join us as we review the year 2013. So stay tuned.